In this video series, we'll be discussing some best practices for mitigating risk in your digital experience platform. And specifically, we'll be looking at features of Sitefinity that can be used to reduce risk. As we consider how to mitigate risk, it might be helpful to use a common framework for thinking about security vulnerabilities. For this video series, we'll be using the OWASP Top 10. OWASP is the acronym for the Open Web Application Security Project. OWASP is a nonprofit foundation that works to improve the security of software. The OWASP organization regularly authors a top 10 list, which is a standard awareness document for developers and web application security. It represents a broad consensus about the most critical security risks to web applications. Here's the top 10 list for the most recently published year, which is 2021. With each new report, they adjust the categories, rename some of them, regroup issues according to what they see in the wild and what users report. In the rest of this video series, we'll examine each item on the top 10 list in more detail. The first item on the OWASP top 10 is broken access control. Access control refers to policies that prevent users from acting outside of their intended permissions. So the first step is to make sure to use the roles, permissions, and groups features of Sitefinity. With Sitefinity, you can easily configure permissions for various parts of the system. In this screenshot, you have all of the various subsystems listed down the left and the groups on the right. You can see here that you can alter forms permissions so that the Everyone group does not have access to view form data. So you can lock down form data to only those groups that need access to it. If you're using third-party tools like CRMs, make sure you're checking access control there as well. And when considering access control, you should also keep in mind the concept of a headless or decoupled system. Sitefinity has built-in web services, making it easy to expose and consume data. For example, you might have a mobile application or a single-page application or similar calling APIs to consume that data from CMS. It's important to configure those APIs or web services to only expose the data that you need and that the authenticated users desire. Here, you can see how you can configure CORS, cross-origin resource sharing, to specify which domains can request API data, as well as configuring who can access this service. Category 2 is cryptographic failures. The focus for this category is on failures related to cryptography or lack thereof, which often lead to exposure of sensitive data. Make sure you protect data at rest and in transit. During transit is usually pretty easy, as it's straightforward to disable the older, weaker TLS versions. To protect data at rest, encryption can typically be added by the cloud platform. For example, Azure has a transparent data encryption that can be turned on for databases to provide a seamless layer of encryption. And consider end-to-end encryption as data moves between the components of your DXP as well. Item 3 on the OWASP top 10 is injection. Injection occurs when systems process invalid data and allow for code or data to be injected into your system. A first tip here is not to write your own SQL queries, but instead use Sitefinity's built-in API. Also, consider using a firewall to monitor for injection attempts. If possible, you should use a firewall that is configured specifically against the OWASP top 10. This screenshot shows the configuration of the Cloudflare firewall with common OWASP rules. You can turn them off and on based on your specific needs. Item 4 on the list is insecure design. There's a difference between insecure design and insecure implementation. A secure design can still have implementation defects, leading to vulnerabilities that may be exploited. An insecure design cannot be fixed by a perfect implementation, as by definition, needed security controls were never created to defend against specific attacks. Tips here include using a partner with a secure development practice, use a library of tested components, use an official Sitefinity partner who has experience working with the platform. Ask your partner questions about their security policies and code management and deployment. And as you compose your DXP, look out for data that might flow downstream. For example, this screenshot shows some PII in the history trail for an automation in Zapier. Make sure to check logs in your automation tools for data being leaked. Coming in at number 5 on the OWASP Top 10 is security misconfiguration. This generally involves missing appropriate security hardening across any part of the application stack. This could also mean having unneeded features enabled. This category includes missing security headers as well, like HSTS or content security policy and cross-site scripting. Luckily, Sitefinity has an excellent web security module baked into the backend. It is easy to configure these security headers, even if you're not a security expert. Here you can see how easy it is to add trusted sources to your content security policy. Item 6 on the list deals with whether or not the software is vulnerable, unsupported, or out of date. This could include the operating system, the web server, database server, APIs, components, runtimes, and libraries. Make sure to keep Sitefinity up to date. Perform regular vulnerability scanning, and consider additional protection like Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Item 7 on the OWASP Top 10 concerns authorization and authentication of the users of the system. Make sure to use multi-factor authentication everywhere you can, including the Sitefinity backend. Use password managers and strong passwords. Don't attempt to roll your own authentication layer. Instead, use Azure AD. And make sure to remove access to the Sitefinity backend for all employees who depart your company. Item 8 is software and data integrity. These failures relate to code and infrastructure that does not protect against integrity violations. An example of this is where an application relies on plugins, libraries, or modules from untrusted sources, repositories, and content delivery networks. Make sure to check for vulnerabilities in npm packages and similar. Establish a review process for code and configuration. And ensure your CI/CD processes have appropriate controls as well. Item 9 on the OWASP Top 10 is security, monitoring, and logging. This category is to help detect, escalate, and respond to active breaches. Without logging and monitoring, breaches cannot be detected. Some tips here. Use the audit log capabilities of Sitefinity. Log API events. Review the history logs from other systems. And use Cloudflare for monitoring security events. The final item on the OWASP Top 10 is server-side request forgery. SSRF flaws occur whenever a web application is fetching a remote resource without validating the user-supplied URL. It allows an attacker to coerce the application to send a crafted request to an unexpected destination, even when protected by a firewall, VPN, or another type of network access control list. In this scenario, we're pulling data from an external system into Sitefinity. Tips include to make sure you sanitize and validate all client-supplied input data, and enforce the URL schema, port, and destination with a positive allow list. And that completes our review of the OWASP Top 10 and how you can use it as a guide to mitigate risk. We hope you found this series helpful and it will make your applications more secure. For help on securing your Sitefinity site, contact us at hello@smoothfusion.com. Thanks for watching.